SAGES Stories.
Welcome to today's episode of SAGES Stories, the official podcast of SAGES, the Society of American Gastrointestinal and Endoscopic Surgeons. Please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you can stay up to date with our most recent episode and enjoy the show. Welcome back for episode 23 of SAGES Stories, where we shine the light on some of SAGES' most impactful leaders. I am your co-host, Dr. Shirin Tofai from Los Angeles.
And I'm Dr. Kevin L. Hayek from Cleveland. This episode will air after the most recent SAGES national meeting, which I'm sure was a huge success.
Yep.
If not only because it was held in Cleveland.
Yay!
I'm also sure that you and I had a great time connecting with so many of our SAGES friends.
Oh, for sure, Kevin. As of today's recording, the meeting will start a week from today. So hopefully, I'm hoping, Kevin, that you've called for some good weather because homie don't do Cleveland winters. I'm just saying. We had Denver and Montreal the last 2 years. Can you please help me out here, Kevin?
I mean, fun fact, Cleveland was in the path of totality yesterday for the solar eclipse.
That's cool.
As was Montreal, or at least very close, which is the site of the last two SAGES meetings. So random fun fact there.
Yeah, it's random, but that is totally fun. And, we did have a little bit of a partial eclipse in Los Angeles, but most of the stars we see are in Hollywood, as you know.
I see what you did there. Nicely done. Well, the SAGES meeting will be a blast, as always, but today we're about to have some fun with our guest, Dr. Carla Pugh, known to so many of us in SAGES for her fantastic professional career. Today we get to hear from her personally about her journey. Dr. Pugh currently holds many positions as the Thomas Crummell Professor of Surgery with tenure at Stanford University, no small feat. There, she's also the director of the Technology-Enabled Clinical Improvement Center and vice chair of innovation, which are roles she has held since 2018 and 2021, respectively. After completing her undergraduate degree in neurobiology at University of California, Berkeley in 1988, she went on to receive her medical degree from Howard University, which she completed in 1992. She stayed at Howard University Hospital from 92 to 97 for her general surgery residency, after which she completed a PhD in education at Stanford University in 2001. Her CV is over 100 pages with multiple grants, awards, publications, various additional impressive accolades. We will certainly highlight a mere fraction of this work on today's episode. Carla, I'm so glad we finally got you scheduled. We've been trying for quite some time, as you know.
Yay.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you. I'm glad to be here with friends and colleagues. I mean, yeah, this is a really big deal. You rarely get to talk amongst your academic friends about your true dreams, so I'm looking forward to whatever questions you have.
Oh, well, we have lots of questions. And
okay, I'm scared.
Okay, so you may know SAGES Stories is called that because our podcast focuses on the main topic of our guests, which is our guests and their story. So, of course, we want to hear about all your academic work, but I personally am so excited to learn more about you, yourself, and where did you grow up and your whole journey. So maybe kind of start from the beginning and orient us as to who you are.
Oh, wow. I was born and raised in California in Berkeley. Be scared.
Oh, very nice.
I mean,
that's not common, by the way. You're like an OG Berkeley person.
I am OG Berkeley.
Nice.
Total hippie family. And I didn't know any of that until I moved out of California and was shocked that it was not normal to have 3-inch orange shag carpet and a beaded entryway into your living room. I thought that was normal. So imagine my shock when I saw other decor. I'm like, you mean you bought this in a store and you didn't go to a hobby shop and we all sat in the living room and made the beads? Like, what What do you
Oh,
mean you went to a store and bought that? That doesn't make
Wow.
sense. No, I mean, I was totally in a hippie family, community love. We did not celebrate Christmas. We celebrated Chinese New Year,
nice.
and we celebrated Chinese New Year with Rastafarians because that was just the melting pot in California. So I knew nothing about all things traditional or normal, which may explain a few things. Because I
Well,
think that I
This
can
is
work with
why I love
anybody.
California.
I am
This is
entitled to
why.
have mentors from all backgrounds, and the answer is always yes. And when people say no, it is a pause, and then you figure out how to get around it
Love it.
because everything you can do, it's possible. You just have to find the right team and the right people, and the stars will align.
so what was your family like a little bit growing up then?
What did your parents do?
Yeah, no, I mean, so let's be clear. These are like those traditional questions. I am first generation everything. I mean, it is not, I didn't know those words and it was just a dream. So I think let's put things in context. First of all, my parents were born in the South. Both my mom and my dad were born at home because they lived in rural farms in Mississippi and Alabama, respectively.
Wow.
And so when I was 4 and 5 years old, I'm hearing stories about both of them being born at home by either their great aunt or grandmother. And those two amazing women were also the ones who delivered all the farm animals and did surgery on them. And my interpretation of that at age 5 was that they were surgeon female
Mm,
doctors, and that's what I'm going to be.
wow.
I love it.
So that I stuck with it. I made that declaration at age 5 that I'm going to be like them. And by ninth grade, I decided I was going to be a craniofacial reconstructive surgeon because of a video that one of my science class teachers showed us of Paul Tessier, who was at that time known as the father of craniofacial reconstructive surgery. And we watched this video documentary of the procedures that he designed and developed over a 3-day period. I'm like, there it is. So not only do I want to be a doctor, now I know exactly what kind of doctor I want to be. Have to finish that story. Obviously, by the time I got to my residency, literally, I was hanging out with plastic surgeons and had my heart set. And then by second year of my residency, I became a total flake with respect to the commitment to plastic surgery, because when I was in the operating room with the urologist, I was like, oh my goodness, the kidney, the ureters, the retroperitoneum is so ridiculously cool. I could be here. Then I did my thoracic surgery rotation. Same thing. Oh my
Wow.
God, the esophagus, the heart, the trachea and everything. I thought it was so interesting. And that's when I realized that I just had a love of human anatomy.
Mm.
Mhm.
And believe it or not, you gave out my timeline there. I'm old enough where general surgery was still a specialty. There were only a few. There was no MIS SAGES. There was no
Yeah,
MIS
Kevin doesn't understand
specialty.
this.
I know, right?
This is like foreign to Kevin. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it didn't exist. I mean, colorectal did not exist. Vascular did not exist. Everybody did everything. And so, but I knew in that moment, my love of anatomy, that I wasn't going to be a regular surgeon. Like I had such a passion for education, and the technology piece came in when the National Board of Medical Examiners was piloting an online test. And when I got to see the pathology slides on a computer, and I just at the click of my finger, I could look through and change the magnification on a computer without having to carry around a big, gigantic, heavy microscope and a slide box. I'm like, this is the
Wow.
future. Everything is going to be in the computer.
So
And that was really,
that was your during your residency then? That was in your
no, that I was in medical school.
yours in okay, so this was medical school. Okay, so this was during your rotations then? You're like your third year?
So the obviously I took went down a rabbit hole of my specialty choice, which I went through to my second year in residency. But in terms of the computer interests, that started in medical school when we had that pilot with the National Board of Medical Examiners, and we were one of the pilot schools. That started in medical school. That started the dreams. And so that was always a side dream that went along as I began to change my specialty. I always still had the technology dream along the way.
So how did your parents move from the South to Berkeley?
You know what? That's an awesome story as well. It's the military.
Military.
Oh.
So my mom had 14 brothers and sisters.
And
That's how it happens in the South.
Your
And
aunt was
so,
busy delivering a lot of people.
They were busy delivering a lot of people. And there's a 50-year age span between the youngest and the oldest, right? Maybe 30. Is it 30? 35, 40 years age span. But the brothers were in the military, the older brother, and they were stationed in Alameda County. And when they moved there, then they went back and moved the rest of the family, like 2 or 3 at a time. And so that's how my mom moved to California when she was 14 years old. And similar story with my dad. His oldest brother went to the military and then got money to go to school. Like once you finish the military, or I think, and I'm really bad with this, is like the G bill or something like that. Yeah. And so he had gotten money to go to school, and then he came and back and got his brothers, and then they went to the military and they got school and followed that pathway. So my dad went to UC Berkeley undergrad, or he went there and he got an MBA at UC Berkeley. And that's how my dad and my mom met in the Berkeley scene.
Love it. So your parents were not scientists?
No. The scientist piece happened in the backyard and in the garage.
Okay, tell me more.
We always like hearing about the garage and the back.
It's always a garage.
Yeah, it's always a garage, especially in California. How many things happened in the garage in California?
You know what? That's always right. Didn't Bill Gates
Bill Gates,
that's right. Everybody
Steve
does everything in the
Jobs,
garage in California, right? Yes,
all garages.
It always happens in the garage, and I mean, because my mom was home-based community mom. Like everybody loved her because she was the cool, beautiful, kind of just super smart and innovative. She started her own company. But we would have a lot of friends and family and people, and somehow we just had random things in our garage, like either from her company or from something in the house that broke. And I just one day decided I was going to fix those things.
How old were you then?
7. I took apart my first transistor radio, and I was just looking for something that seemed out of place. That Sesame Seed Strong, one of these things does not belong here.
Yeah, one of these
2 of these things are kind of the same, but if you guess that this does not belong here, now you play our game. Yeah, and I didn't know it because there was no terms for it, but had a knack for pattern recognition, and I could look at something and say, yeah, that part looks out of place. And I kid you not, after I fixed my first transistor radio, just using pattern recognition, and saw that one of the, I didn't know what it was called at the time, but one of the amp connector pieces had come apart. When I put it back together, there was a spark and there was noise. And I'm like, it's fixed. And then that just started. Once you have a win, right? I mean, if you were born with that surgeon's brain, then nobody can tell you what, I can fix it. You think you can do anything. And so my mom enabled me to continue with that. All my friends wanted dolls, and I wanted a soldering iron when I was a kid.
Why didn't you go into engineering?
I mean, think about it in those days. They weren't encouraging any men or girls to do engineering.
That's true.
Hey, yeah. Some people just thought I was a tinkerer. A little weird, little tinkerer, but I could fix things, so I was popular. I mean, and I fixed everything. So I fixed dolls, I fixed radios, I fixed bikes. I think again, once
I have some
You
stuff
could
in
throw
my
me a
garage if you'd like to come over and fix some things.
Do you
I
still
actually I
do
really
you,
love doing
do
that,
you
to be
still do
honest.
things like that? Do you still
I
like, I mean, I'm sure
yes,
you don't have a lot of time, but if you saw something, would you kind of start,
100% I would fix it.
you would?
I
Okay.
I had to, yeah, I did have a little bit of a downgrade, and I had to get, especially when I moved from Wisconsin to California to a cute little cottage that costs more money than it should. I had to get rid of some of my tools.
In California, that's a
Well,
shock.
yeah,
Real
yeah,
estate's so
right.
cheap there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
right,
mean, aren't
right.
they giving it away?
I could
Yeah,
totally
I had
see.
to get rid of some of my tools that I had in Wisconsin. You know, Wisconsin, you have like a big home that's like 4 times cheaper than any home in California and 5 times larger. But yeah, and so I downgraded, but I still fix things, and it's very hobby shops, Ace Hardware, any of those
Wow,
stores. Like I know my way around. I buy stuff, I fix stuff.
love it. I can totally see Carla at Sages, and Jason is trying to figure something out. She's like, "Let me figure. Oh, I got this, Jason."
I got
Yeah,
this. I
yeah,
got
we could do
this.
that. Splice some wires, put them back
So
together,
cool.
get some good electrical tape, and it'll work.
Editor's note. In fact, this has never happened.
Love it.
So we got to your second year of residency. You at that time it was general surgery, and you started seeing all these different fields. How did you end up kind of gravitating toward? I mean, I mean,
Where
it
I am
wasn't.
now.
Well, no, I mean, even in minimally, I mean, there was minimally invasive surgery. It was just a different, it was in a different era of it. But like, how did you gravitate toward wanting to do minimally invasive surgery?
Oh,
From where?
that's so funny. So that's the age-old sage secret. I am not formally trained in minimally invasive surgery. I did not do an MIS residency or felt I didn't do a MIS fellowship.
There was no fellowship
Yeah,
council back then. It was like you had
Yeah.
to like individually apply. There's only a handful of programs that were
By that
legit.
time, I was already on my path. I had
Yeah.
already, by the time the fellowships at MIS came out, I had already done my PhD. I already had a job as an attending. And so, how did I learn MIS myself?
yeah.
Because I am a minimally invasive acute care surgeon, and
Mhm.
I will stick a scope in anybody that I can get in their belly, and I'll find my way in. Um, I did my acute care surgery fellowship at Michigan.
Okay.
And so,
Mhm.
a big place like that, you've got a lot of folks. And Emily Finlayson taught me how to do lap colons,
Oh,
Mm.
great.
right? I mean, and so how that happens is when you do acute care surgery at Michigan, each week there's an attending from all the specialties within general surgery that cover the emergency general surgery service. It wasn't just acute care at that time. Now, mind you, that was 20 years ago. Was
Mhm.
it 20? Oh my God, I'm
A little over
embarrassed.
20. Yeah.
No, it was 2009
Oh,
when I
not
went to
even.
Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, we were doing that at that was also the model at the Cleveland Clinic when I was there. You'd
Yeah.
have a
Was it
you'd have
2009?
a surgeon of the week who covered acute care
Yeah.
surgery.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I learned from all those specialists, which is what I love to do, right? That's the melting pot of people. And so um yeah,
So
and
that was
and
after you had already had you
become an
had it.
attending.
Yeah,
And at
and
that
so you
time I
went
was
back.
already a surgeon scientist. So I already had
Right,
funding.
right.
I wrote my first NIH grant and then left my role as I didn't really leave, but I was granted by my division chief to go and do this partial, acute care fellowship because it didn't exist. And we wanted to start an acute care surgery service at Northwestern, but it didn't exist at the time. There was no acute care. Acute care was like, there were 2 accredited programs
Yeah.
back in 2009. And I was at Northwestern in my first faculty position, surgeon scientist, 50% clinical, 50% research, and fell in love with, you know, emergency surgery.
Yeah.
And when I learned about acute care, then my division chief said, "Yeah, let's do it." And so I was able to take. I don't even think I took a year. It may have been 6 months. Maybe it was a year off, and went to Michigan to do this fellowship. But I was obviously not the traditional fellow because I was already attending. And so I got to, pick and choose and really learn some tips and tricks from the masters, and it was awesome. And in addition to how you set up an acute care service, the nurses, the call center, the clinic, the whole workflow. And so that was amazing. And that then kind of framed who I was clinically.
This is one thing I've always wondered about you, Carla. So I've known you for close to 20 years, maybe 15, 20 years, something like that. And
Longer. Yeah.
when I knew you, I would, you know, I you're so amazing and so well published, and like your intelligence is just amazing on the innovation side and surgical education, research, new technologies, etc. And then you would give a talk and be like, yeah, so, when I was on call last night, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. You're a general surgeon that is taking call. Acute care surgery, you have to take call. You can't just like show up and have clinic. You actually have to take call, which takes a lot out of you.
Yeah.
And most junior faculty, right? Your job includes call. Like that's just part of being a general surgeon. How did you balance being a junior faculty, taking call, which means you're not sleeping at night, right? With transitioning from that to doing so much on the non-clinical side? I've always wanted that. That's a
Yeah.
hard thing to do.
Well, and it's hard when you don't have a model for it. That someone says, here's the pathway, here's a yellow brick road, follow the road and you'll get there. No, we were building the bricks and putting them down in places and seeing if it landed. And sometimes it did not land well. So I'll just tell you the short narrative. So my first job, I'm a faculty person at Northwestern, and I'm 50-50. And we're like, okay, great. We'll do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning clinical, and then Wednesday afternoon, Thursday, Friday research.
Mm.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. That was the first template.
That doesn't work.
It sort of, it sort of worked. The way that we started, I was actually at the VA, so you have some control, but the days were shorter, and it was a little frustrating for me at this VA in Chicago. And maybe it's the same because I haven't worked at a VA in a while, but the ORs kind of shut down around 3 o'clock. I'm like,
I think it's still that way.
I'm like, if I'm only
VAs,
2 days clinical, I kind of want to be operating till my eyes pop out. Like I want to, and so that's when I started taking call at home base.
At main campus.
On the main campus. And so then I'm like, okay, I like this because it's a wider case mix and then it's more manageable actually. So just think about that. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning, then Wednesday afternoon. And what I realized is that it became difficult. And then like on call, on a weekend, Friday or Saturday or something like that. But it turned out that Wednesday it was difficult because I'm in the lab in my research lab on campus. And then I got to drive across town to get to clinic in an afternoon and then switch brains. And it's two different brains to be dealing with sensor data and then laboratory values and x-rays. It's just a different brain. So then we tried 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off.
Okay.
Holy moly, I got murdered because you do 1 week and you try to catch up and then you get all these complex patients and then you take call. And then by the second week, you're a week behind in your notes and your charting. And so you go into that second week with operating all the time and then you still haven't finished your charts. And then the backup of charts, records, and patients bleeds over into the Wednesday of your 2 weeks off. And it wasn't really off. It was 2 weeks back in the lab and trying to catch up with the engineers who were like,
where have you been?
Well, I mean, we've been answer an email. But like, yeah. So it was and then once we started everybody started, getting acute care. They're like, oh, no way. You can't do acute care for 2 weeks in a row. You just can't.
So
Oh,
were they
yeah.
saying 1 week,
Yeah,
1 week then? They were
so we
saying,
did one
yeah,
week. The
okay.
sweet spot that nailed it was 1 week on, 2 weeks off.
Mm-hmm.
But that 1 week on was what we call the hell week. You did 1 week on and you were on call Monday night, Thursday night, and Sunday night.
Right, because you had to get 2 weeks worth of,
Well, a week and a
hours.
half. Yeah,
Right,
a week and a half, right? Because
Okay.
And on meant 24 hours or 36 hours?
36.
36.
Yeah, 36.
Yeah,
that's
you're on call Monday. You start 7 a.m. Monday, you go home Tuesday at 5 p.m.
Yeah, and
yeah.
attendings don't have like work hours limitations like the residents now do.
Ah, yeah.
Another
So,
topic,
I'm
different
telling you,
podcast.
Kevin, this is I've been one for 20 years.
yeah,
I've been wondering,
yeah.
how is this woman doing
How is
this?
she doing this?
Because I
Yeah.
see everything she's doing,
Mhm.
with innovation and new technologies and surgical education and the talks and the research and the grants. And then she was talking about when she was on call and how she had this one case. And I'm thinking, where did that fit in? And did you have
Yeah,
a supportive chair to allow you to grow the non-clinical part at the cost of the amount of time you spend in the
the
hospital?
chair was very supportive and it helped when I got my first R01.
Yeah.
That's then when my colleagues became more supportive because you got to look at it. Like the other folks are looking at me like, how'd she get a seat at the table? She doesn't do
Mhm.
what any of us do. She's not really a real surgeon, and she's
Mm.
not really she's not doing clinical research like we do. She's over there playing with toys. So
So to speak.
it was a little testy in that first assistant professor years, and then after it was interesting when I got my R01, it was sort of like, yeah, she's our zebra.
Mhm.
So
So then they
how long in was that? What year in was that
six.
six?
Because I had
Okay.
gotten a
Wow.
few grants. I had gotten a few grants that got me enough to get, you know, um, some preliminary data, a few papers,
Mhm.
and the engineers started to populate the lab and they were excited about what we were doing. And I started to win awards on the engineering campus. They would have the
So
biomedical engineers
So you
doing
became an
design
engineer.
projects.
You became an engineer just kind of in a circuitous route. You were at that point. You were.
Yeah, well,
She
and
was
then
the
turns out
boss for the engineers.
they valued the skills I brought to the table, fixing all
Mhm.
those
Transistors.
Resistors.
transistor radios and light
Transistor.
bulbs and all kind of things, and yeah, and I had that. It's called makers. You have a maker space now, but that's what I was. I was a maker. I still am.
Okay.
I'll take
Yeah.
something apart and do it in a minute, but there became a formal language for it, and even courses, and
Uh-huh.
even a space on the engineering campus. So I was partnering with people and helping them make things, and they helped me make things. And
Sounds
of
like a
course,
great
they
life.
always kind of saw me coming because I was always wanting them to make a body part, and so they're like, "What are we building now? Kidney, a gallbladder?" And so it was fun for them because it was always something unusual. Um, and then, yeah, then the R01 came and I got a great score, and that landed me the Presidential Early Career Award for scientists and
Oh.
engineers, which is then noteworthy at the level of the president of the university. So then, when you have that kind of line, the president of the university, the dean of the medical school, your department chair, and your division chief, it's sort of like, okay,
So
yeah.
That's great.
did you pull back from clinical activity then, or you still stayed pretty much in that clip of
No,
one
it
week?
did. I the 1 week on and 2 weeks off worked for many, many years.
That was the
That
template.
was the template that kind of fit the puzzle piece. And at that time, I after I did the acute care, I transitioned from the VA to home base. So then I wasn't driving back and forth. So what that means is that in those few times in between cases, I could pop into the lab. And I had some good people that were productive and yeah, it worked out. I even for my teaching assignments, I blended it in, like, because we all faculty had to do lectures for the residents. And so, and for me, I would have my team set up a simulation for my lecture time.
That was
And
your
the residents
lecture.
Oh,
loved
I'm
it.
sure they
And
loved
I
it. They're
come
like,
in
all
and
right,
I'm
this
like, you
isn't
guys
death
in
by
this one
PowerPoint
hour,
for once.
exactly. Yeah, no, they loved it. And then that's how then you get residents who want to work with you, right? And so that it just kind of took off. And then they're partnering with engineers. And so I became pretty popular with, if you want to write a cool paper and go present somewhere, you got to work in the Pugh lab. So it
Oh
was it
yeah.
was
I mean,
fun.
that's an understatement. Like every time your group, someone presents, it's like this is where all the cool stuff is
yes.
going on.
Yeah.
It is just so cool. And
Like
everyone is
Disneyland for
just
surgeons.
salivating as they watch this, kinetic movement study that it's just fascinating.
You guys are making me blush.
Do you
I'm
think do you think your time at Stanford is what really kind of propelled you to the next level?
getting the PhD? Definitely.
And then afterwards, joining their faculty.
Coming
And
back.
coming back.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it was always a learning journey, if you will, because I had my time at Northwestern. I had that support. There were some superb, supreme, well-known educators there. You've got Deb DeRosa, you've got Bill McGahey, you've got all these folks who are doing stuff at the AMA, ASE, all these, there's some national leaders in education there.
Who
But
was
then
the
I had a
chair at that
chance,
time?
Dick Bell, who then ended up going to the
Yes,
American
that's
Board of
right.
Surgery
Bell.
and
Oh, he was so
energizing and
wonderful.
starting SCORE
Yeah.
and the whole 9 yards. And
Oh,
so,
start
yeah, there's
SCORE.
a lot
Yeah.
of history there.
Wow.
A lot of
Yeah.
history.
And then when I went to Wisconsin, they were a research machine. Oh my goodness. I mean, all you have to do is say, I'm interested in writing this grant. Next thing you know, there's like, you have 5 appointments. They had a whole
Wow.
machine there in terms of helping you submit and get grants, written and the finance, the budget, all that stuff. And so that's where I got my second big grant. I had got my R01 just before I left Northwestern, and then got my big DoD grant at almost 2 years into it at Wisconsin. And I
We
think
asked,
then
go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
Yeah, we
sorry.
asked one of our other guests. I'm always fascinated. Grants are so difficult to get, and there's just a couple people out there, yourself included, that are so skilled at acquiring them. How do you? What's the secret, or what's your secret in that? I think we asked another one of our guests a couple of years ago, who was also a heavy grant writer and had acquired many, many grants.
It's funny. I think it's definitely storytelling and being able to we go through this process. Like if I can get my engineers to understand it and then my surgical colleagues to understand it, then I know I've crossed the chasm. You know what I mean? Of a story that's mainstream enough that regardless of the specialty, I'm telling you the impact and it makes sense. And then I'm saying these are the technologies and then these are the steps that I'm going to do to achieve that impact, or at least a major paradigm shift or some new data that we've never had in this space. I have to be clear. I mean, I was not successful on every grant that I've written, and it just, it's knowing your audience and it's the storytelling, and I'm very visual. So being able to, I was doing infographics before they were popular. All of my grants look like infographics because
So
you
like
want to walk someone through.
the visual abstracts. Is that
Yes,
like,
I was doing visual. My
infographic?
first,
Yeah.
you look at my R01, my first one that I submitted in 2008, I believe. The diagrams to this day, I'm like, yeah, that's the story right there. Yeah,
Wow.
it's the story.
So the story, and then I'm sure it sounds like you got a lot of help building a pretty decent team too.
Yeah, and that's in certain areas having that transdisciplinary team, you know, a surgeon and an engineer and, you know, and not only just bioengineers, but mechanical or someone who knows how to build MEM sensors, electrical engineer. That diversity has been pretty popular and has served us well.
The reason why I asked about, institution is, you've obviously published on a lot of different topics, but like surgical simulation, for example, that's been a big deal. People don't maybe appreciate that when you were working on surgical simulation, there was nothing high def. There was nothing. We had boxes at the most, and most institutions had no surgical skills lab. It was not a thing
It was
until
not the thing.
you kind of were part of the early stages of it. And I mean, I don't know. You've read Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, and it talks about how things don't happen by chance, right? It has to be like you have to be in the right area, surrounded by the right people, in the right environment. All of those factors shape your success. So, do you think, having been at Northwestern with Bell and DeRosa being like the king and queen of surgical education, most surgical programs didn't spend a lot of time and energy on education. It was something you did for free. It wasn't something that was funded, or because you were in Wisconsin where you had support for grant writing and there were the engineers, or the surgical department in Stanford where the chair was really into innovation. Like, I feel like you kind of did a really amazing job. And was it on purpose that you were surrounding yourself with all these great influences, or is this kind of like you know, all the stars aligned?
The fate aspect.
The fate aspect, yeah.
It's the fate aspect. I'll tell
Huh.
you. I mean, I can tell you that story for each step. So when I was a resident and I first said to my chair, LaSalle Lafall, that, you know, I wanted to focus on surgical anatomy and technology and computers, he said, you need to meet these two people. And there was no email in those days, so he wrote a letter
Wow.
on a piece of paper.
Whoa, wait, what's
Dear,
that?
He
Many
wrote
of
a
our
letter.
listeners, many of our listeners,
Letter. He wrote. So
they
he
wrote
wrote a
like an
letter.
alphabetic letter. Like what
by
is
hand,
by like
not
Handwritten letter
robotic.
to two
not
people.
robotic.
One to Bob Chase, who was chair of plastic surgery at the time and running this lab at Stanford. And it was perfect because that was home for me. So I would go and visit Bob Chase during my holiday breaks as a resident. And that's how we decided, that's where the PhD came out. But so LaSalle Fall wrote a letter to Bob Chase. I ended up at Stanford, and that was the only grad school I applied to. Then after Stanford, I ended up, this is the full story. Tom Crummell became the chair of surgery at Stanford.
You're now
I'm the chair. I'm the Thomas
chair.
Crummell professor,
Yeah.
but 20 years after I met him,
Wow,
right? So
that's cool.
he is the surgeon who mentored me when I was this lone surgeon getting a PhD in education at Stanford, and he mentored me because he had an interest in technology.
Yeah.
Who knew if it had been another chair, my pathway would have been different. But the chair of surgery was Tom Crummell. And he started 6 months after I had already come to Stanford. When I first went to Stanford to get my PhD in education, Stanford had an interim chair, and they had an interim chair for 7 years.
Wow.
So anyway, short story, Tom Crummell is the mentor.
These are very important
When
details.
I finished my PhD, I met my husband at Stanford at a bio computation meeting. That's a whole nother geek story. And my husband or fiance at the time had already gotten a fellowship at Northwestern in Chicago. And I was speaking to other people like, okay, I'm going to find me a job in Chicago after I finish my PhD. Tom said, you can't go to Chicago and at least not talk to Dick Bell. And I'm like, okay, I've never met him before. So Tom Crummell calls Dick Bell. Dick Bell literally returned my phone call on a balcony when my husband and I are looking. He's like, "Can you meet me at 10 a.m. tomorrow?" I'm like, "Yes, sir."
Yeah.
Gets
He's very
crazier.
senior then. Yeah.
Gets crazier. I go to meet Dick Bell. I didn't even have time. It was like less than 12 hours for me to prepare. I'm looking for homes and I'm getting married. I'm sitting outside his office and there's this annual department review or summary. I pick up the book and I'm flipping through it. And on the second page is Deb DeRose. And I'm like, holy crap. I just cited all her papers in my dissertation. And I met her in a restaurant. I knew she was in Chicago, but I know she was at Northwestern and I hadn't read it the night before. And literally, as I'm reading to her, she walks by. She's like, "Yeah, you're meeting with Dick Bell, aren't you?" I'm like, "Hi." Like literally, it's like a
Wow.
movie. After I get the job, the admins in the department are walking around going, "Oh my God, you have no idea." I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like 3 weeks before you called Dick Bell, one of his patients just gave him all this money for education. And then here you come showing up. He says that you showed up like manna on his doorstep.
Nice.
So he
Wow.
had the money to fund me and protect me. Plus, I
For
had
that
already had a grant.
50%. Yeah.
I
And
came there with a grant from my PhD with the National Board of Medical Examiners Stimler grant that I had just written, and then it got awarded. And so I took it with me to Northwestern. And so I had my 50% protected time. And then yeah, I'm presenting my papers at ASC. Then I meet Herb Chin and all these people. And they came down from Wisconsin to look at our SIM center because they were building one. And so
Mm.
I walked them around and told them about it. And then 2 years later, they're like, "Can you come run our sim center?" I'm like, no.
Oh.
Like, because I don't move. I'm like, why would I move? I hate moving. Like, and I love Chicago and it's fine. I'm just gonna stay here. It's fine. And then it just worked out. It kept giving me an offer I couldn't refuse, and it worked for my husband. Turns out, I kid you not, this is all crazy stuff.
This is amazing.
We
We need
ended
to
up in
publicly
Wisconsin.
thank the patient that gave the grant that made
yeah.
you be able to have protected time.
I have to find that for you because I don't think he's with us anymore. That
Oh,
was 20
Yeah.
years ago. He was
yeah.
70 when he did it. When I
How
Mm,
first did.
fantastic.
Anyway,
yeah.
but we gave him annual reports
You
for
did.
many years,
Wow.
and through his foundation. It was amazing.
It's really
Um,
cool.
but literally the Wisconsin move was helpful for me and for my husband. One of the persons in Wisconsin ended up being someone that my husband had worked with when he was at Stanford and was starting a new lab, and it was perfect. So off we go to Wisconsin. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
It,
and I'm always blown away by as I mentioned before, the tools your lab has developed, particularly those around psychomotor development. And many who are listening might not appreciate how important engineers are, and now they do, having heard just how many engineers you've worked with in the development of surgical innovations, tools to help teach medicine, physical examination, surgical techniques. So can you share some of the high points and maybe even some of the low points in your search for ways to monitor surgeons' kinetic movements and how they develop those types of things?
it's interesting. I think that the biggest misconception, which is a little bit of a low point, there's two kind of low points. One within surgery is that all of my original research started with putting sensors on mannequins, and it was for breast exam, pelvic exam, prostate exam. And there was just this big sense at that time, you're doing research and it doesn't even relate to surgery. And for me, the whole time I'm seeing these patterns, back to my pattern recognition, it's patterns, and I'm looking at this data, I'm like, oh my God, like this is going to change how we see what we do. Like I can bring touch at the point of care to light. And it was, for me, it was always about the data, but people only saw the exams. And so that was a low point for me, just trying to figure out how to tell the story about the data before data science was popular. AI was not even in the analytic realm at that time. It was still more different patterns. It took me 7 years to learn how to talk to engineers about the data to get them to partner with me. So those were the low points, or really just sort of trying to tell a story that nobody believed at that point in time. And then when the motion came in, those patterns were very similar. And so it was exciting for me. And I knew that this was the other part of the story. And then if you think about it, in my first work, I was putting sensors mainly for exams that you actually couldn't see what someone was doing. So I didn't have an internal camera to correlate with the force profile, the motion, the signature
Haptics.
waveforms, the patterns. I didn't have a video to go with it because this was an internal exam. You couldn't see. Finally, for the breast, you could see, and I didn't even want to do the breast because I'm like, it's so easy. If somebody's not doing it right, you can see what they're doing. But then it turns out that force, how much force you're applying. I'm like, I don't care how long you watch when somebody's doing a breast exam, you cannot see or track the amount of force that they're applying and whether they're putting in the right place. Those general concepts turned out to be the exact same with motion. You
Right, like you
can
apply the force and it goes deep into the body, or
not even just force, depth perception, haptic
How
perception,
fast?
bimanual
how
dexterity,
fast.
coordination, and just the nuances of things, finding out the patterns, and that experts operate slower than novices in the parts where it matters.
Yeah.
Actually digitizing,
Slow down
the
moments.
slowing down moments and showing where they occur and looking at that data. And so by the time I got to the motion data, I already had these patterns and rules of understanding from the very basic, breast exam and pelvic exam and prostate data, but I couldn't, it's hard to tell that story because people just like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. But if you look at the data and you look at all the different ways to plot that data and divide it, it just all came together from a story.
And it sounds like it built off what you've already done foundationally, and then you recognize the pattern, and then you applied it to the next question that you
The
were
next level.
asking. Yeah.
The next question, the next set of sensors, and the sensors have become so much more flexible, available, and like less expensive than they were 20 years ago. And there's just an explosion of sensors and engineers that are working in that space. So that also, a new sensor can do a number of things. Most times the newer ones actually facilitate areas of analytics because they have more data accuracy or precision, or you have more flexibility in the programming. I did a little coding myself, which was kind of crazy, and the engineers were just amazed. It's the pattern recognition. I can look at your code and I'm like, look, this is an error, this is not going to work. And they're looking at me and I'm like, try this. You're missing your little C.7 over there. You have it in the other thing, like 5 lines up, and you didn't carry it down. And they were looking at me like, you're crazy. And I'm like, but it's right. And they're like, you're
Like
exactly
8-year-old Carla coding.
I don't understand how you see this. And I'm like, it's just patterns. It's patterns. The same place that aorta is supposed to be somewhere. And if you miss it, I'm gonna notice it.
Yeah.
Does your eye like some people, they'll see something and whatever's wrong in that pattern, it just like shouts out at them. Is that how your eye sees things?
It's like you're sticking your finger in my eye.
Yeah.
Like, oh God, it's missing that. And then sometimes I just kind of like get quiet and I look around to see if someone else sees it. Because then I have to go through the work of explaining it. Do you know how hard it is to translate a picture into words quick enough so that a human being won't write you off? That's my life. That's the downside. Is I'm like this visual person. I think in pictures, I see patterns, converting it to a short sentence such that the audio, verbal people of the world can understand it. That's tough.
I think this is so important for people who are listening, which is regardless of what project you were doing, you're always true to yourself, which was A, to fix things, and B, use your your knack for pattern recognition and so on. Because when you were first doing these projects and it was, let's say, the pelvic exam, right? People were saying, oh, well, I mean, she's a surgeon. Why is she doing pelvic exam? That's not for surgeons, that's for medical students and so on. But those were stepping stones to now what you're doing, which is so surgical, and just people don't appreciate maybe how much of what they're currently doing and being taught is based on stepping stones that you've developed. On that note,
Uh,
what?
I want to
Tell
just
me.
piggyback one thing on that. I mean,
Yes.
you're very unique. You know that already, but in terms of just the, you know, your desire to really bring transparency to a very secretive environment, namely the OR. And, you know, I was recently at AHPBA, and your colleague, Theodore Grancherov, gave a fascinating talk on improving quality and safety, and how part of that challenge has been the secretive aspect of the OR. And, you know, one of the questions that came up at that meeting, and that I've asked many people in this space, is just, you know, I'm sure you have interested people within your lab and maybe within your immediate vicinity who want to be tracked and want to see their movements, you know, put in a data sheet to see if they're efficient or not. But how do you change that culture where you're working with a group of people that really don't want to be too transparent necessarily in what they do?
You know what? And I think I love that question because, and I'm glad that you gave me a little inkling of where your grounding is coming from in terms of what Theodore Granchoff is doing. Mostly his is video.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
video is
more intrusive.
A look, and well, you know what? It has more of a history.
Yeah.
Right? Because nobody wants to be filmed doing something stupid, right? Because then you are wrong,
It's called
right?
TikTok.
You don't want to be filmed making it right, because it's called YouTube. It's called cutting the ureter and playing classical music to it and posting your damn video on YouTube like that.
Yeah.
I mean, so we've seen it, right? I mean, and so there's a history to it, and people are sensitive to that. Even, I mean, since we were a kid, what was that show that you're on Candid Camera? You know, they would play jokes, or then who was the other guy?
Truman Show. Well,
oh no, but he would
That's
trick
really
you.
far along.
No, yeah, the Truman Show. I know
the
that.
kid, the guy that was married to
Ashton
Kutcher.
Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah.
Oh, that 70s show? No.
You got punked.
Oh, you got
punked.
Oh,
like, so we've used video to make fun of people, like that culture. And so I think in my space a little different. It's been so interesting. I've had a different reception.
Okay.
In that the data is different. It's not recognizable. It's not been used it's not been used for humor, for embarrassment, for humiliation. It's not. And I want to keep it that way. And I want to keep the OR secret. I have to be clear. I do want to keep it secret. I want to keep it amongst ourselves. Like, I want us to be able to share tips and tricks amongst the masters. I want a master surgery database such that we're not teaching our residents in a vacuum, because we're teaching them and we're all observing them. But what they really need is our data, such that they have performance criteria to meet. Like, we need the answer. So we've been doing all this simulation for years with residents and filling out all these OSATs forms and things like that. But where's the database of the gold standard for them to reach? We've still inserted ourselves in the old-fashioned way of the most experienced person knows best and should be doing the evaluation. Well, complement it with sensors and digital
let's get
that
some
really
numbers.
says what they do. Yeah, let's get some numbers. Let's get some metrics. But I still want to keep it secret. I want to keep it amongst ourselves. I think that I want this to be a ground up grassroots thing, that the specialty societies, the surgeons own their craft, define what mastery is, define what competency is, link this to outcomes, and that we own this and we self-monitor. We still have to report. Nobody gets away without reporting, but we are the ones that are setting what is the standard use of this data and how we use it. And that's my biggest pet peeve. If we don't own this, this will be, you can put your head in the sand all you want. This is the future.
Yes.
The
industry
groups already have the data.
Yeah.
One of them already got their hand slapped for selling our data without us knowing it.
Ew.
Come on, people.
Yeah.
Let's do it the right way. We were asleep at the wheel once in medicine and healthcare, and that was with the finances. And look at us now. You've got all these third-party. Healthcare is 10 times more expensive than it should be because we have 20 people per surgeon to manage what we do.
True.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a whole building of people who are managing the finances of what we do, the business of what we do. If we fall asleep on the data train, it is going to be awful.
That's depressing.
On that note, Sharon, you take the next one.
We're gonna fall asleep because you guys are drinking the Kool-Aid here. We are going to be in control.
I know.
So sign up, line up, give me your data. I'll give it back to you specialist, and let's take control of this train. I'm dead serious. That is the reason. Let's move it. You guys we're 13 minutes over, right? Or no, I don't know.
No, we're never over. We're never over.
Okay.
We're gonna.
I mean, I'm at the Joint Commission right now. People don't understand that. Did you know that I just?
No.
Tell me more. What are you doing at the Joint Commission?
So I'm on sort of a sabbatical from Stanford, semi-sabbatical, literally sitting in my apartment in Chicago right now. I just left the Joint Commission headquarters.
Okay.
I've been here for 6 weeks.
Outside Chicago, isn't it? Isn't it kind of far away?
It's Oak Brook. It's in Oak Brook.
Yeah.
Oak Brook. Okay.
It's the suburbs. It all fits in the measurement, the data, the passion. And I want to, everyone says like, okay, you're now full professor. You've gotten all these awards, time for you to be chair of surgery, dean. What's the next step? And I'm like,
Joint Commission.
Joint Commission.
I did say that. I did say it. I didn't even think about it. I was talking to some of my, and you know what they said? There was like, you need to meet John Perlin. John Perlin is the president of the Joint Commission. So they arranged a phone call and we talked. And I was just like, let's do a year. Let's do a fellowship and explore. And I kid you not, in the first 6 weeks, I'm like, this is what I was missing. I mean, this is the natural next step at a high level in terms of working at the level of quality, working with a wide variety of groups that have data ponds that need to coalesce to become the gigantic data lake that really helps shorten the gap between process and outcomes. It's all data related. People are like, how do you go from sensors and that to Joint Commission? I'm like, it's the data. It's the quality data. It's the data that surgeons want.
Yeah, because you're a genius, pretty much.
No, you guys are super sweet. I don't know what that means. What's a genius?
You've done so much and so varied. We went from prostate to Joint Commission. So
prostate to Joint Commission.
Very wide.
From the pelvic,
from the podcast. From the prostate Joint Commission.
Sensors on the prostate.
Of all the projects that you've done, which one are you most proud of?
Oh, it's not the projects, it's the team.
Oh,
I am most proud of my team, and I'll tell you, I mean, I couldn't do any of this without people that are really cool and inquisitive and fun to work with, right? So I had 2 engineers that were full-time at Northwestern, my first lab at Northwestern. One of them came with me to Wisconsin.
Wow.
When I left Wisconsin, 5 of them came with me from Wisconsin to Stanford.
That I'm not surprised by.
It's a.
I mean, it's not Cleveland, but it's okay.
It's not Cleveland, but yeah. Yeah. No, that's
It's
fantastic. That's
and
awesome.
so the thing that I'm most proud of is that the team of engineers that I have right now, they now are facile at putting wearable technologies on surgeons in the operating room without me. They are all OR trained. They have stepped up to the plate. They went through their transition of only looking at operations on a computer screen to now standing in the room with the patient and feeling the seriousness of what we do and the privilege of the data that they now have been analyzing all these years. Oh my God. Like I can't even have their emotions, but when I talk to them, I feel it. And I'm like, that is just so cool. For you all have taken like the short course on medical school and you're standing here in an operating room with serious tension. And then you have a committed surgeon who is so committed to expertise that they would have let you put sensors on their forehead and their shoulders and cameras on them so that you could take what's expert in what they've done and transform it into something that can be used to share with their colleagues and the residents. Like that's transformative in terms of team growth, team commitment to the cause, right? And so when you have that kind of win with people and that excitement, that's
awesome.
That's what's awesome.
Well, we are the official podcast of SAGES. We always need to remember our benefactors. So we always want to hear from our guests how they first became introduced to the society, and then more about their subsequent involvement. So can you share a little bit about that?
Wow, my first introduction to SAGES, that was like 100 years ago. How did it
let's
come?
hear it.
I mean,
Yeah,
not really.
do you remember? Yeah, I know, 100 years. Or maybe some early experiences. Early experiences.
Yeah, I know so my early experiences with SAGES, oh, it's funny, I'll tell you. So working with Jerry Freed.
Okay.
And
I've heard him before. He's been great.
And I got Jerry, I have a whole video, a documentary of teaching Jerry how to build a simulator. And then we partnered together to put on a course, a SAGES course at Covidian. And then that's when I met Aurora Pryor and all these other folks from SAGES. So we were doing a course in Connecticut at Covidian headquarters on vitreal hernia repair. And we built some of the simulators. It was hernia.
Hernia's made another SAGES Stories podcast.
Yeah, it is. It was hernia. That was my first pull into SAGES was through hernia. And then of course I'm at Northwestern, and who's my chair after Dick Bell? Nat Soper.
Exactly.
That's right.
So the rat pack of SAGES, all those presidents, Nat Soper, Steve Schweizberg, Jerry Freed,
all previous SAGES Stories guests so
all
far.
interviewed. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. And so these guys were automatically mentors for me.
Wow.
And then I got put on the SAGES hernia SAGES, whatever. I don't even know how I made that up.
I like Herges.
Yeah, we like that.
The SAGES hernia task force.
Yeah.
And that's where I was spending all that time with Melina Vasiliou, Guy Veller, and Adrian Park.
Yeah.
With that hernia module, right?
And we were in knee deep, and that was a labor of love. And then it was like massive pandemonium when we met the first like group from IDEO, and that's when I realized external groups can't train surgeons. They can't build things for us. We have to do it for ourselves. But that was my first major multi-year commitment at SAGES was the hernia task force. But there were lots of other projects and teaching and partnerships. And then it just continued, and I got invited to be on the board, and then partnered with more people and partnered with a number of courses in the SAGES Learning Center. And then even this past year, FLS, partnering at the college and with the board, and it just keeps growing. And now I'm on, part of SAGES Ingenuity.
Yeah.
A lot of things going on.
Very cool.
I'm in the internal intricate spaces of all things development.
So with all that you've done at SAGES, I'd like to transition that into our favorite SAGES Stories podcast segment. It's called the We Are the SAGES segment.
We are the SAGES. Sing it, everybody. We are the ones who make you brighter days, so let's start treating. Have you had a good time tonight? There's a choice we make. We got a lot more coming. We are dancing, singing. Lives. It's true. Let's give a big hand for SAGES Party. Give them a big hand.
So we like to hear, what is your favorite SAGES moment?
Wow, hard to pick, but I can tell you, oh man, there's so many because they're not all clinical and they're not all. So the one that stands out the most was when SAGES was in San Diego, and we had the SAGES celebration party night event on one of the aircraft carriers.
Yeah.
And Scott Roth and I went into the fighter pilot simulation, and we automatically just took roll. He's like, okay,
like Tom Cruise.
I'll do the steering. And I was like, okay, and I'm start fighting. I'm just going to shoot everything. And literally we were in there and the thing was rolling around and we were doing this and we could hear the people outside like, and I'm like, I think we must be doing really well. And we get out of there. I mean, and our hair is like up all over the place. And we get out and we come out and people are like, holy crap, you guys just won the high score.
Oh,
it's like nothing neither of us had done before, but we just paired up and right away and decided, who's going to be the team. And like, we were like, we got put up a few notches in terms of the cool kids class.
Which is almost impossible, but it's still.
We were just hernia simulator people before then. Then we became the hernia simulator
fighter pilots.
Fighter pilot.
Aim that mesh and tacker.
Yes, aim it, fire.
No, we saved a few people that day. At least in the simulation.
So cool. Yeah. That's a good story.
That's a great story. So we are nearing the conclusion. But we have a few quick hitter type questions. So first, what's a current good non-medical book you're reading? Or have you recently read that you think would be a good one for someone to read?
It went out of my head because I thought of it when you first asked me.
All right, we can come back to it.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, Kevin's is Dr. Seuss.
Mine's Dr. Seuss. Yeah, I read that to my son. So, all right. So, how about favorite sports team?
You know what? I was going to tell you it's the All Blacks. There's a story to it.
What's the All Blacks?
The rugby team.
Oh, I don't know rugby.
You don't know rugby? No. Okay, let's hear the All Blacks story.
We don't do rugby in Los Angeles.
I went on this long trip. I was in New Zealand.
New Zealand, yeah.
And that was part of. I was there for a week giving education talks with Tony Gallagher and some other simulationist education people. And one of the partner surgeons in New Zealand took us to one of the games, and I still had the jerseys are just ridiculously cool. So I'm kind of a flake. They're my favorite team because their clothes look good.
They do look good. and their chants. I mean, you just
Oh my
feel
God,
it.
have you seen
Yeah.
it? You have to see them. Like, they're so intimidating. Like,
Yeah.
just with that teaming chant in the beginning, it's inspiring. I think
Yeah.
that we should actually adopt that in the operating room. I think there would never be any wrong side surgeries. There would never be any errors in the operating room if we did that chant before our cases.
We would have
It's,
to be.
you have to see it. Just
Yeah.
Google it.
Yeah.
All Blacks pre-game chant.
Yeah. It's fantastic. It's great.
If I was the
That's cool.
opposing team, I would just walk off the field after
I
they did
know.
that.
I don't know how you could
Just turn around and
go out
walk
and
away.
play.
Like, why
Yeah.
would you even face somebody who has paint on their face and like a chant? That's so guttural.
Yeah. Gutturals,
Anyway.
right.
You were
Got
going
it.
to tell us your favorite ice cream flavor.
Yeah, it used to be Chunky Monkey, but then I
Oh,
went to
yes, for
Wisconsin.
sure.
It was Chunky Monkey, and then I went to Wisconsin. There was something called Blue Moon or something. It was
Oh, yeah.
literally blue.
It was blue.
It
I've
was
seen that.
crazy,
You're a
amazing.
Ben and Jerry's fan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you like fish food? My daughter made me buy fish
That's a good
food
one.
tonight. She's
Do you-
like, Dad,
Oh, I thought
it's-
you meant, do I like to eat fish food? I'm like,
no, the
No, it's not the
The
Ben and
Ben and-
Jerry's
tasted
one.
it once when I was 7, and it was a little
No.
paper, but
no, Ben and
Yeah.
Jerry's fish food. Ben and Jerry. That's my daughter literally made us order Ben and Jerry's. Just like, Dad, I need fish
Such a
food
good
tonight.
dad.
Yeah, so we
Such
got
a
her
wow,
fish
good
that's
food.
dad.
awesome. No,
Yeah,
that's a new flavor. That one didn't exist.
Oh,
when
you
I was
gotta
a
you gotta look that
ice
one
cream
up.
It's
fanatic.
good.
Yeah, I'll have
I
to
know,
look
I
that
know that's maybe a past behavior, but if you had a bowl of fish food, you might
good.
yeah.
I'll tell you one of my old time classic books that I love is Siddhartha.
Siddhartha. Okay.
Sure.
I don't know if you know that story,
Yeah.
but crazy amazing short
Beautiful.
story book
Siddhartha. Okay.
that you just one of those ones you read over again at different times in your life, and it takes on so many different meanings, all the stories there. But
Beautiful.
that's one of my old time favorites. And my favorite poem is by Robert Heinlein, and I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. Heinlein, Heinlein. And he has a poem that says specialization is for insects. That's my favorite poem.
Insects?
Insects.
Specialization is for insects.
I like it. I
Okay, I'm gonna
agree.
read that one.
I think we should try
A
to be a
human
little
being,
more-
his whole premise is that a human being should know how to do everything. You should know how to change a diaper, start a war,
end the war.
do end
End
a
the
war, put a cast on, cook a meal.
Yeah.
And he says, specialization, like the thought that somebody should specialize and only do one thing, that's for ants.
I can do all of those. Just the war thing. I've never had
The war
experience
thing,
with.
yeah,
Yeah.
we should.
Well,
yeah.
it just depends on how you define war. If you ever killed a spider in your house, you were at war. I'm sorry.
That's true.
I mean, I
That's
end
true.
wars then.
Yeah, then they're ended. All right, and then our last question then, we haven't asked this in a few episodes. Who should we invite on the podcast next? Who's someone from SAGES family that, again, we're getting up there. We got a good little string here, but we can always like to give our guests a chance to recommend
Promote
a few people.
someone. Yeah.
Promote someone.
It's funny. I have two ends of the spectrum with
We
that
like spectrum.
question. And you probably have interviewed them. I would say Jake Greenberg.
Done.
We got him.
You've already, I figured you have interviewed on him. His music love
Oh,
is
yeah.
just crazy
Yes.
amazing. It's
Yeah,
crazy amazing.
Super.
Great story with that.
That was a great
And then
story.
someone who's a little more reserved, but those people always have some story.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because they're paying attention.
God, just because I said it, now the name went out of my Philip Omatosho.
Philip Omatosho.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
So he was one of the committee members on that hernia task force in the very beginning. That's how I got to know him. I spent a lot of time with a lot of folks early on in SAGES. And he's kind of this quiet, reserved guy.
Okay.
Yeah. He's got some
Cool.
stories. The other one I would say with Mike Ujiki.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
They haven't done Mike already.
Yeah.
Chicago.
He was one of my residents when I was at Northwestern.
Oh wow.
And I was
Hernia.
best friends with his wife.
You talk about hernias with him.
Yeah.
I was best friends with his
Maybe
wife.
Paris. Oh, that's
Oh,
cool.
that's cool. That's very, very
You know
cool.
what? You should interview him and Melissa Holt together.
Oh, that's a great
Do the two of them
recommendation.
as do Northwestern resident SAGES, like something like that. Like the two of them, they were residents at Northwestern together, and now they're just
Uh,
like
crushing life.
badass,
Yeah.
crushing,
Yeah.
research kind of clinical.
Yeah.
But how did that training and that experience? I don't know. There's something there with those two that
I
they
like
came
Cool.
out
that.
of that program and
Great
knocked it out of the
stories.
park. Yeah.
That'll be nice set of stories. Sounds great.
Well, awesome recommendations. And with that, Carla, Sharon, and I just want to thank you so much
Yes.
for spending this past hour with us. It was so great to get to know
Yeah.
you a little better, to hear about all the fascinating work you're doing, just to get to know you. We're looking forward to all the progress you're going to continue to make in these important arenas. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was fun.
See you in Cleveland.
See you soon. Awesome.
And that wraps up today's episode of Sage's Stories. You can view the show notes for any links to sites we referenced today. Visit sages.org for membership information and for the most recent news from our society. Follow us on Twitter at sages_updates. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. See you again next time, and remember, you can't spell minimally invasive surgery without SAGES.